I use my table saw all the time to cut solid woods and even sheet goods for the projects that I build. Now some projects actually require metal, like a router table I'm building that's going to use this combination T-track and miter slot track. Now to install that, I do need to cut it to length. And you'd be surprised that table saw is a great choice for cutting metal, non-ferrous metals like brass and this aluminum. Now the key is the right tips, tools, and techniques. That starts with the tools. Instead of my standard saw blade, I've swapped it out for a metal cutting blade. The key thing about that is the triple chip grind on the teeth. But there's one other thing that this tooth has going for it, and that's its cutting angle. And now it's hard to see on the individual teeth, so I'm going to bring this in. And what you can see is on a standard saw blade, the teeth actually lean forward from the center line of the blade and it has a very aggressive cut, and that's fine for wood. But for metal, you want a negative hook angle, and that's where the teeth actually lean back from the cut. It's a lot less aggressive and better for cutting metal. Now besides that, I also want to make sure that I lubricate my saw blade. And I like to do that with a dry lubricant like this here. You just spray it on. Now once the blade's installed, that can get a bit messy. Simple solution to that is to take a piece of cardboard, just cut a kerf in it for the saw blade, and just place that over the top, and it's really easy to spray the teeth without making a mess. And once the lubricant's had a chance to dry, pretty much ready to make the cut. Now like any cut, I like to have solid support, so that means adding an auxiliary miter gauge fence. That works great for small pieces of metal. But for larger pieces like this channel, I like to go one step further, and that's to make a carrier board. Now a carrier board is nothing more than a piece of MDF in this case, and I've cut a groove down the center to match the width of my workpiece. And to make sure it doesn't shift as I make the cut, I've added some self-adhesive sandpaper here in the bottom. It's not going to go anywhere. Now using this carrier board couldn't be simpler. Just line it up with the teeth on the saw blade, and pull that back, and then I can use that to line up my cut. Now one thing I want to make sure we understand when you're cutting metal is metal can get kind of hot. So I like to vacuum all the sawdust out of my cabinet, and I want to make sure my dust collector is turned off as I make the cut. Well, I've got everything set here, so I'm ready to cut. After lowering the saw blade, make the cut with a slower than normal feed rate. Well, with the right tools, tips, and techniques, you can use your table saw to make clean cuts in metal.